Hey friends, this is Audie Cornish, host of CNN This Morning and The Assignment, and guess what? Every story you care about, every angle you want unpacked is now streaming on CNN. That means you can catch my show or other CNN programming whenever you want on your favorite device. And a subscription also gets you access to exclusive video series and unlimited articles. So subscribe to CNN at cnn.com/subscription.
Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He is a professional wrestler and boxer and is the father of WWE superstar Carmella. Pleased to welcome the one and only Paul Van Dale. Welcome, Paul, to Wrestling with Heart.
Stanley, how you doing today?
Doing just fine. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Just hanging out in Pittsburgh. I moved here about 3 years ago, and I didn't realize before I moved here how much rain they get here.
Oh,
they
wow.
They get a ton of rain. I heard it was like Seattle, Washington gets the most rain, and then after that it's Pittsburgh, and I believe it. I heard there's like 100 less sunny days here in Pittsburgh than it was in Massachusetts, where I'm from originally. But That being said, the people here are great. I enjoy the city. There's a lot of good places to eat, and I get to spend a lot of time with my grandson who lives here. So that's the main reason why the wife and I moved here.
So New England, what part of Massachusetts are you from originally?
I'm from Spencer, Mass, a small town right outside of Worcester, about 10 minutes out of Worcester.
Okay. Definitely familiar with Worcester. I've got family in Massachusetts, and I actually was in Worcester not too long ago. Nice area.
Yeah, it is. And Massachusetts was really nice. Another thing I miss over here in Pittsburgh is the oceans, because we used to love the oceans around the Massachusetts area. We used to go up to Portland, Maine, to Old Orchard Beach. It's a beautiful beach. I used to go up there every summer, and we used to go to Newport Beach in Connecticut. Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island. They have beautiful beaches over there in Newport. And but that's one of the things I miss. But, like I said, Pittsburgh is nice too, and we're glad we came here.
Definitely some gorgeous views in Massachusetts, in that New England area.
Yeah.
Lovely oceans, beaches, and scenic views.
And the fall's beautiful up there too, with all the foliage and everything.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, for sure. Now, let's talk about your childhood growing up. Was sports something that you were always into, like football, basketball, soccer, before?
Stanley, I always had a passion for sports, even when I was a kid. But the thing was, I was so damn small, man. When I went to high school, I only weighed 87 pounds.
87 pounds.
I did play a little bit of football, but I just didn't have the size. I just developed later on in life. My mother once took me to the doctors to wonder why I wasn't growing, because my father was 6'2", 260, and I was 87 going into high school. So they couldn't figure it out. And when I graduated high school, I only weighed like 145 pounds. But then I went to the Marine Corps. And when I went to the Marine Corps, I just, even though I was lifting, I was lifting weights since I was like 13 years old, but I just couldn't put any size on. But then when I went to Marines, finally everything caught up, and I started developing. And then before you know it, I was 210 pounds. And I had this, a good build. I had this strength. And so so I want to say, like, I excelled in sports when I was younger, but I had once I developed myself, I got my size and my strength, I started having a passion towards combat sports. Because when I was a kid, my father used to take me to pro fights in Worcester at the auditorium, and he took me to pro wrestling matches there when back then it was WWF. So I did have a passion for it then, but I never pursued it until I was older.
Who were some of like your favorite wrestlers growing up that you watched?
Well, Chief Jay Strongbow. I was pretty intrigued by him and Andre the Giant. I would say those are the two that were really that stood out in my mind the most.
What was it about those guys that made you go, man, this is so interesting. This is so
I just think the
fascinating.
excitement, when Chief Jay Strongbow, when he did his war dance, it was just I was pretty entertained by that, and that's what it's all about, is the entertainment. And then of course Andre being as big as he was, and when I was just a small kid, and I seen this giant come walking into the ring, I said, this guy's something else, But the thing is, when I came home from the Marines, when they had right before WWF really went really big, I was able to get a ringside seat ticket to an event they were having that night at the auditorium in Worcester. And when I was there, I seen Jimmy Superfly Snuka for the first time. And he came into the ring, and he was jacked up. He was like 250, solid muscle. And then the way he was moving around, because back then he was one of the only real high flyers back then. And that kind of got me thinking about, hey, this stuff's pretty cool. I would like to try this someday.
Definitely, like you're mesmerized and are fascinated by like these larger than life superheroes.
Right.
And so, at what age did you decide I want to go into this?
Well, actually, at the time I was boxing. I started boxing when I was in the Marines, and then I came back and I had some fights. And then a little while after that, I got married. And boxing, it was good bringing home trophies, but I figured, I wanted to get to wrestling, and because I figured, I can make more money with that. And so I was at the age, I was, like I said, I was thinking about it when I first saw Jimmy, but then I never really pursued it, because then, you get busy with life, trying to make money and everything else. And then I said, and then when I got married, I was like 25. And then by the time I was 27, I met Killer Kowalski in Mountain Park in Massachusetts. He was putting on an exhibition match at this amusement park. And after the match, I went over and I started talking to him. At the time, he had a school in Malden, Mass, right outside of Boston. And I talked to him a little bit. He said, hey, you should come over and try it. And so I did. But, I never really knew anybody that was in the business. I never talked to anybody about the business before. I really went into it kind of naive. And I thought it was, which it is, a work. But back then I thought, you didn't feel nothing. It was just all the work and everything, And then I came back to my first training session with Killer Kowalski. My neck's bothering me, my back. I said, wow, I thought all this stuff wasn't real. You know what I mean? And that's one thing people don't realize. Even though it's predetermined, people don't realize the punishment that your body goes through, when you're in there working. They say, there's it's like a trampoline. It's not true. And then Kowalski's ring was a boxing ring. And we used to take bumps off the top rope. And in the center of that ring was a steel post. And it was stiff. And I trained with him in that ring for 10 years. And I can feel it today, that's for sure. But
well, I'm sure the experience with boxing helped with crossing over into wrestling, because there's a lot of similarities between the two.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it definitely helped being in the ring, being in front of people. I mean, that definitely helps. You get those butterflies. But I'll tell you, when I had my first match, I was only with Kowalski for 3 months, and he said, he goes, WWE's coming to the New Haven Coliseum in Connecticut. I get you booked for the show. I said, all right, I've only been doing it for 3 months, and I had this brand new pair of white boots. He goes, just rub a little dirt on your boots, make it look like you've been in the business for a while. And I went down there and I walked in that locker room, and it was just, and it was a TV. So all the superstars were there, from Hulk Hogan to, you name them, they were there. Greg Valentine, Tito Santana, I mean, on and on. And so anyways, Chief Jay Strongbow was working as an agent back then. And he comes over and goes, hey, Paul, I get you working with Ken Patera tonight. Now, this is my first match, right? And this place was sold out. I think it held like 15,000 people, and there was TV cameras on me and stuff. And getting back to boxing, even though boxing, you go out in the ring and you're trying to kill each other and everything, and you get those nerves before you go into the ring, which you do need to have, because it'll make you sharper and more focused. But I'll tell you, that was the most nervous I think I ever was in my life, to this day, walking out in front of that crowd for my first match. A lot of people have their first match like in high school, or you might be in front of 100 people, or a couple hundred people, or 50 people. I'm walking out to a sold out arena, and I'm going to wrestle the world's strongest man, Ken Patera. So it was kind of surreal, but I got through it. And after that, it's funny because my next match after that, I was in front of like 50 people in a small show in Cape Cod, and the Barnstable Fair. And so that show was like nothing after being, because everything got thrown at me right in the beginning. Sometimes that's good because then after that, everything gets easier. Then the next time I did go back to do another WWF back in the day taping was with, I wrestled the Boss Man. And that, now by then I had some matches under my belt. So it was a lot less stressful for me. And I was a lot more comfortable being in there.
Now, when you're training and when you're learning from Killer Kowalski, what kind of pointers is he giving you and pieces of advice that you're applying to even after leaving the ring? Anything that you can recall?
But I mean, even after I was all done with wrestling, you mean?
Yeah, even after you retired and have left the business.
Yeah, I think one thing that's, well, first of all, as far as wrestling, you would always teach you ways to protect yourself, because if your opponent's, if you're in there and you're too stiff, and somebody tries to drag you, whatever. If you're too stiff, you're more susceptible to get injuries. That's why in football, a lot of people are always breaking their arms and everything because they're always so tight all the time. So one of the things he tried to focus with us is like trying to be loose, and that helps prevent injuries. And if somebody's got your arm tight a certain way, just twist it a little bit to relieve the pressure off it. Just little things like that. He focused a lot on preventing injuries. And the way he taught us to run the ropes was different too. Instead of just going with a lot of people you see run the ropes, they got their backs completely against the ropes, and he would teach you to go in sideways. So if that top rope breaks, you're going to be more adapt to breaking the fall than just going backwards. Because if you go backwards and that back rope breaks, you could probably land on your head on the ground. So he would focus on protecting yourself because he was in the business for so long, and he knew all these things. So he would try to prevent injuries. And as far as things I've learned from him later, to this day, some things still are in my mind. That things like he would. One time I was going to want to come up with this gimmick. I was going to make myself, because I was an ex-Marine, I was going to call myself Corporal or Sergeant Van Dale. But he goes, promote yourself. Make it, instead of being a corporal or a sergeant, call yourself colonel or a major or something. And that just stuck with me, saying, yeah, it's true. Always think bigger. You think bigger, maybe bigger things can happen. You know what I mean? So just something like that. And he was quite the storyteller too. He told me the story one time. He says when they were going to go to Japan years ago, they had a guy wrestling with him that was going to play with him, Haystack Calhoun. You remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Haystack Calhoun?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This guy was like 600 pounds, right? He was huge. And they were thinking, what if he's got to go to the bathroom, when we're halfway over the ocean? How's he ever going to fit in there? So anyways, they get about halfway over the ocean. He has to go to the bathroom. And there's no way he was going to fit in there. So what they did was the stewardess got him in the back of the plane in the corridor, and they held a sheet up and they put a box down, and he went to the bathroom inside that box. Kowalski says, "Well, 600-pound guy taking a dump on an airplane, man." He goes, "Boy, did it stink, But but he always had a story. He liked to talk, But I got along with him great. And he wasn't the easiest guy to get along with either. But if he liked you, he liked you. He was one of them kind of guys. But if he didn't like you, he'd let you know it. I see him kick people out of his training sessions before at the gym just for doing something he didn't like. Just tell him, get the hell out of here. But if he liked you, he took care of you. So I have nothing negative from my experiences being around him.
You got to really apply yourself 100% and really commit to learning the art and the craft of professional wrestling. And so you were with WWE for quite a while, and you also got to have Razor Ramon's first televised match in the company. What was it like getting the chance to work with him?
Yeah, well, I did WWE off and on for like 10 years, but my main promotion was with Killer Kowalski for the IWF, International Wrestling Federation. When I like to do WWE, I would travel with them a little bit too, here and there, but on the East Coast mainly. But when I did the match with Razor Ramon, I saw his vignettes for several weeks on TV, and I didn't have an idea I was going to be working with him. And then one night I went to the Centrum in Worcester, Mass, and they told me Tony Gurria was one of the agents still that worked. And he came over and goes, "Paul, we're going to have you working with Scott tonight." And I was pretty happy about it because that was going to be his debut match. And so I said, sure, I'll do it. And it was stiff, man. I don't know if you ever seen that match.
Mm-hmm.
If you see those chops he gave me up against the ropes,
They were brutal.
I had bridges in my chest for days. We went to Portland, Maine that next night, and one of the guys I was going to work with him pulled out of the match. He didn't want to work with him because he was stiff. Before the match, Vince McMahon didn't even know I was going to be working with him. It was Tony put it together. Tony Gurria put it together. And then Vince come over, and he's telling Razor, he goes, I'm paying you all this money. He goes, I want you to be stiff tonight. I want you to take this guy and beat the hell out. And I'm standing right there because he didn't know I was going to work for him. I just pat Vince on the back and go, hey, Vince, I'm the guy you wanted to do all that to. He goes, well, you know. And he walks away, right? But it is what it is, man. Wrestling was a little bit different back then,
Yeah, definitely. It was crazy because you had, a lot of guys coming in and out, and it was the territories, and then finally you had two big companies heading into the Monday Night Wars, and so it was really like it was must see, and you had a lot of talents during that time. Like you said, you had Hulk Hogan, you had Macho Man, you had Jake the Snake Roberts, you had Tito Santana, all these guys coming in. You had Taker and Razor and Diesel and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. It was like a who's who.
Right. Well, the thing is, Stanley, back in the day when you had the territories, right, it was a lot easier for people to make a living in the business. But then when Vince got rid of all the territories by taking all the top stars, what happened was it killed a lot of opportunities for a lot of people to make a living in the business. And then, like you said, there was only really two divisions, two companies left, and it hurt a lot of people. But the people that were in those two companies were doing good and they were making a lot of money, so good for them. But it's just the business completely changed. It's just, and then a lot of it too, especially back in that day. Like the thing is now, it's a lot easier for somebody to make it big than it was back then, because back then Vince was into the into the monsters, right? And and people were all gassed up and everything. And the thing was, today you can get a guy who's 180 pounds and he can become champion. Back in the day, that guy would barely be a jobber. You know what I mean? That's just the truth, man. I don't care what anybody says. I know for a fact. I don't care how good they can work. It's a whole different animal. But Killer Kowalski told me, he goes, down the road, he says, it's going to bring the smaller guys and the workers that's going to do this business. It's not going to be, because that was like a phase they went through with all the bigger guys and the giants and everything. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is too, and a lot of it too was like people that came in. Those people that weren't all that jacked up were people that were in the territories and already built their names. So they had the opportunity to come in too, But you know what? I get into that business when I was 27 years old. I was already married. I had like 3 houses at the time. I had a family. I had a couple of kids. And I always did it, part-time because I enjoyed it. I enjoy getting into the ring because, I started boxing when I was 19. I just always enjoyed getting into the ring. And I always had a passion for combat sports. So that's what got me intrigued into the business, and that's why I did it. And I still try to get into the ring today when I can, as far as boxing and everything. I had a fight about a little over a year ago in Atlantic City for celebrity boxing, and it was good being back in the ring again. And I might even think about getting back and doing some more wrestling too, for maybe some independence. Maybe I'll start my own federation.
That'd be awesome.
I'm 65 years old, but I mean, I work on 7 days a week, man. I'm in good shape, and I can still do it.
If you have goals and dreams and put your mind to it, you can do anything.
You can, you really can, yeah. As long as you do it. Some people go through life, they never try anything. I mean, you won't know if you don't try.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about your daughter, Leah Carmella. Talk to me about when she decided to enter in the business, any pieces of advice or tips you gave her to help her guide along in her journey to become a professional wrestler?
Well, Leah, I had Leah when she was like 3 years old. I had her in dance. Her and her younger sister. I had them in, so she was dancing her whole life. And when she graduated high school, she went on to college, and then she ended up auditioning for the New England Patriots. and she was a Patriots cheerleader for 3 years, and she was always kind of intrigued by being around entertainment, everything from the dancing and everything. And then when she left the Patriots, she actually flew to Los Angeles to try out for the Los Angeles Lakers as a cheerleader. And the odds were stacked against her because I think they had 800 girls try out, and they were only going to pick 4 because the other girls were coming back from the previous year. So there wasn't a lot of spots open for her. But she ended up making it. And the thing is, Stanley, she never cheerleaded a day in her life before she even started cheerleading for the Patriots. She never cheerleaded in high school. But, when you get to the levels, the NFL as a cheerleader, it's more about dance than it is about just cheering, And she had all that dance experience. So that's why she did well in that. So she ended up making the Lakers. And actually, they even put her on the cover of the calendar, which is, quite a thing. Because Los Angeles Lakers cheerleaders is a pretty big thing. So anyway, she did that for a year. She lived out in Los Angeles for a year, did that for a year. And then she came back. She wasn't sure what she wanted to do. And she started doing a little bit of personal training. She got certified for that. She did a little bit of that. And then I talked to her about wrestling. I said, you should give the wrestling a shot because, you're in great shape. You like to work out. You look good and you're athletic. So she ended up getting a contract tryout for NXT. They were going to send her to Florida for a week to give her a tryout. But I said, let me take you to my boxing gym in Southbridge, Mass, and I can get you to start doing some bumps. So when you go down there, you'll have a little bit of an idea about what it's like to take a bump. So I brought her to the boxing ring, and I had her taking bumps inside the boxing ring. And when she went down for a tryout, it was like a week-long tryout, but in like 2 days, they already offered her a contract. So, and the rest from there is history, man. But that's, I think she grew up watching me doing it, and she got intrigued by it, and she came to my boxing matches, came to my wrestling matches. So she grew up around it her whole life. And with her being athletic and everything else and being in great shape she was, she went for it. She made it, and she just works hard. She works hard, and Leah's really determined. If she wants to do something, she's going to find a way to do it.
Yeah, it's amazing to see her progression and what she was able to do in WWE. She was women's champion, women's tag team champion, 24/7 champion. She had an incredible career there. You should be very proud because it really, it just goes to show, hard work really does pay off.
Yeah, it does. We're real proud of her, both her mother and I. We were there when she won she cashed in on Money in the Bank against Charlotte Flair. We were there for that because we were there for WrestleMania, like 2 days before that, a day before that, whatever. And she was winning that in New Orleans. That was really, yeah, she made us proud that night. That's for sure. It was great. Because we had an idea she was going to do, but we didn't know for sure. And she pulled it off. We're really happy about it.
Yeah. Well, you've got a very inspiring story I know you wanted to share. Let's talk about that and how you were able to overcome adversity during your time in the boxing ring.
Yeah, my story is being around boxing and wrestling and doing it for years. When I was in my, I think it was like 40s, I think it was in my early 40s, I ended up getting a detached retina in my left eye. And I didn't even know it was detached at the time. I was at the gym sparring one day and I got hit with a shot. I was home that night watching TV and I started getting some flashing in the eye, but I wasn't familiar. I heard of detached retinas, but I wasn't all that familiar with them. So I didn't do anything about it right away. And then as time went by, I noticed that my eyesight was starting to get worse in my left eye. So I got myself an appointment to see an eye doctor. And he looked at my eye and he says, "This thing is so severely detached, you're going to have to go in for emergency surgery." He says, "You're never going to walk into a boxing ring or a pro wrestling ring ever again." So, this was like a real shock to me because I've been doing this stuff for years, like probably 20 years at this point. And I went to see the eye surgeon after that, and he took me in like the next day. He goes, because it was emergency surgery. So he had operated on me right away. And it was to the point where they couldn't even do laser surgery. It was too far gone. So I had to go under the knife. I went for this procedure called vitrectomy. And what they have to do is they have to go behind the eye to operate, and they take all the gel out of your eye, and then they put a gas bubble in there. And so for the first couple of days, you can't see anything. And then eventually, as that bubble proceeds to go down a little bit, each and every day you can see a little bit more until it's gone. But then right away, you can't even lift like a carton of milk out of the refrigerator. You can't put it because you'd be putting pressure on the eye. When I get up in the morning, I have to put my head down for a while so that it could heal right. And the one problem with that too, Stanley, is if you get a scar tissue in there, then they have to go in and operate again. And then if you get scar tissue, then you end up losing the eye. So I got that, so I actually made a full recovery from that, which I was lucky. Some people get a detached retina and they can't really, a lot of them can't see for life. So after that, I figured, well, everything's over the combat sport. So I didn't do anything for it, except I always worked out, and I've always done hard physical labor most of my life too. So I was always keeping myself in shape that way. And then I started hearing about this, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was starting to come around a little bit at the time. And I said, I could probably try this because it's just grappling. It's not going to be like, I'm not taking shots to the head, taking drop kicks to the head or whatever. So I figured it'd be a little bit safer. So I started doing that. And then one day, Gabriel Gonzaga I was training with this company called Team Link. And Gabriel Gonzaga was a UFC fighter, and he trained with Team Link. And so anyways, he had a fight coming up with Shane Carwin for the UFC. And my trainer, who's also Gonzaga's trainer and manager, said, Paul, I want you to be his sparring partner for the fight. And so I went over there. I figured I was just going to be grappling with him. So I went there one day, and he threw me the boxing gloves. And I didn't want to say no because it was, a good opportunity for me to be this guy's sparring partner. I mean, this guy was ranked #1 in the world. He fought Randy Couture for the heavyweight title. And so then I started boxing with him and doing some grappling, but they were usually mainly just, for the boxing. And but I didn't have any problems. I didn't bother my eyes with that or anything. And I had no more injuries to my eyes at the time when I was sparring with him. He's actually a really good guy. But then after that, I was back in a boxing gym. I said, I'll give it a shot again. And then the next thing you know, I got a detached retina in my right eye. And I knew about it right away because when I got those flashes, then I knew. And I went for a surgery. And they caught it before they had to give me the major surgery, the vitrectomy. But they did this thing called the freeze on it, which is pretty painful. And they set it. But then a couple of days later, it popped out again. And then they did another freeze, and it popped out again. Then they did laser, and it popped out again. And so on this right eye, finally they got to the point where they had to give me the major surgery again. So that was my 5th detached retina. By the time I had my 5th one, they had to give me the grand surgery, the vitrectomy. So then I had one eye surgery here on my left, and I had 5 detached retinas on my right eye, 1 on my left and 5 on my right. And so then I said, wow, now I'm really messed up. Wow. I should have listened to the doctor the first time, but I was stubborn. So anyways, I just kept working out and training and, with the weights and stuff and trying to stay in shape. And then I said, well, you know what? I'll just go to the gym. Maybe I'll go back to the boxing gym and I'll just do body shots. I won't take any more headshots. So I'm in there doing body sparring all the time. But, when you get in there throwing combinations, it's a natural thing where people are going to start throwing shots to your head, not intentionally, but it can happen. And then I had a fight in Massachusetts probably 3.5 years ago. I had an exhibition, and then when I moved to Pennsylvania, I was checking out celebrity boxing. I said, I could do one match with them, And so I did, and I fought in Atlantic City. But this was headshots and body shots. This was everything. And luckily, nothing happened to my eyes. But I just wanted to come back, because I was just determined, to get on the big stage and do it, like Atlantic City on pay-per-view. It was, it was a great experience for me. I did a couple of press conferences in Philly, and Celebrity Boxing, they're a good organization to fight for. And I'm glad I did it. And, my eyes, I just went to get my eyes checked last month, and they're doing good right now. And so I'm pretty happy with that. But I just think my story is like just a determination and be resilient, determined, and when you have a dream, even though people tell you you can't do it, if you persevere and you work hard, you can still do it. And now
Yeah.
I'm going to get back, and now I'm thinking, I was supposed to actually have another fight for celebrity boxing in Pittsburgh. It was supposed to actually happen April 12th, but Le'Veon Bell was going to be in the main event. He used to play for the Steelers, and now he's a pro boxer. But the fight didn't pan out, and then the card got dropped. And then they were telling me, I was talking to the owner, Damon Feldman. He told me they were going to possibly come out in this fall, and so I was pretty pumped about that. I was going to get 100, 200 people to come see me. I was getting the word out there, and I was going to have a player from the Steelers walk me in the ring. First it was going to be Larry Ogunjobi, but then he just got traded to. He got picked up by the Bills at the beginning of the season, and I was going to have another player, Calvin Anderson, do it. And so it was going to be a big thing here for Pittsburgh and for myself. But when they go to put something together, it's not always a guarantee. It's always possibilities of things falling through. It's just a business, it can happen with wrestling, boxing, or whatever, anything else. That's why on the card, when they do fight cards on the posters and the flyers, it always says cards subject to change because you never know what's going to happen. And sometimes things get canceled, and sometimes they get canceled right at the last minute. It's just the nature of the beast. But life goes on, and I'm not going to let it deter me from doing what I want to do. Like I said, I still want to be in the ring. I just like being out there in front of the people doing my thing.
Yeah, and so you were able to overcome so much adversity, had to get all those surgeries and you were able to put the work in and had a few fights and you're still going strong now. So there is something to be said about that, picking yourself back up from being on the ground. And so kudos to you.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you're feeling, down about something, what are some things that are motivational for you to keep on going?
Well, everybody in life is going to feel down at some point. I don't care how successful they are. The thing about life is there's going to be good days and bad days. Everything can't be good all the time. You know what I mean? That's the one thing I realized when I get older. Nothing, and when you have a bad day or something bad happens, a lot of times something good can come from that. That's what I really believe. Um, it's like too much of a good thing is not good. It's like I like lobster, but I don't want to eat it every night. Too much of a good thing isn't all that good either. But everybody's gonna have disappointments, and there's times when you're gonna feel down. There's gonna be times you feel like quitting. But you just got to keep going. You got to just find. You got to be strong. Find your inner strength and just keep going. And you know that things are gonna get better as long as you stay on course. Just never give up. That's part of my story. Just never give up and just believe in yourself. And then sometimes you're gonna feel weak. Everybody does. But the strength will come back. Just stay focused.
Absolutely. Um, Paul, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. It really means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find out more about you on social media? And if there's anything you want to plug, feel free.
Okay. On social media, I used to do Twitter. I don't really do Twitter anymore. You can follow me on Instagram. I got a YouTube channel out there. But all you gotta do is put in Papa Chainsaw, and all my information comes up with my social media and everything else. And as far as leaving, yeah, there's one thing I want to say is, I was a U.S. Marine, a lifelong boxer, submission grappling champion. I won, boxer, pro wrestler. I've owned several companies. I was a real estate investor. It was owned construction companies in Massachusetts, owned a liquor store, and I could go on and on. But the thing that prized me the most in my life were my two daughters. They're both beautiful and successful. Of course, Leah, which is known as Carmella. Her real name is Leah. She's done very well and made my wife and myself very proud. And then I have my younger daughter, who's not in the limelight like Leah is, but she's a nurse director at Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital. So
Hmm.
she's doing good things with her life, and she loves her job. She loves helping people, but there is a lot of sadness in what she does when she's trying to take care of these young children, and she sees them passing away at a younger age from bad
Wow.
habits and different kinds of sicknesses and stuff, and it really breaks her heart because she's a really great, genuine person with a great heart. But she's also a boxer. So I tell people I got two daughters. One's a pro wrestler, one's a boxer. Who needs sons? But I just want to say that that gives me I'm most proud of them than anything I've ever done in my life or anything I've ever tried or accomplished. And that just makes me very happy. And I have a great wife who I've been married to for over 40 years now. And we have a great relationship. And we spend all our time together. And she's my best friend.
Ah, man. It seems like you got a great family.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're more than welcome to come back. We'll do a part 2, talk about your future plans with the possible wrestling promotion and some of the other cool things you're doing.
Sure, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks again.
Okay, Stanley. You have a great day.
You too. Take care.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.